Hello, everyone. Welcome to Noise in the Void, Interviews in Art. My name is Emily, and I'm here today with Melanie Martilla. Melanie, pronoun she, her, is a hashtag actually autistic author, writing poetry and tales of hope in the face of adversity. Her poetry has appeared in the Thames Review. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Oh, good. And her poetry collection, The Art of Floating, was published in 2024 by Latitude 46. Her short fiction has appeared in Super Canucks. She is a settler writing in Sudbury and Swakamuck on Robinson Huron Treaty Territory, and the house where three generations of her family have lived, on the street that bears her surname, with her spouse and their dog. Thank you so much for being here, Melanie.
Thank you for inviting me.
And yeah, every time I drive by that street, I think of you. I always wonder, I'm like, I wonder if that's a family heritage there.
And it kind of is. So the street, it was mostly owned by my grandfather. He bought it from a farmer. And I think it was like a chicken farm or something like that before, because there's a lot of rock here. So I don't think you could actually farm any other livestock here. But so the house that I live in was where my dad grew up. And they basically they owned most of the street and just sold off in parcels. So there's a couple of other families that sort of owned stuff before, but there was about three parcels, and they were sort of assigned to each of my dad and my two uncles, and they for their to get their educations going and stuff like that. um, and so once all of those parcels were sold off, the city actually named the street after my grandfather. um, so but it's a very small street.
That's still a wonderful history to have in our city. I love it. And so you have something to read for us today?
Yes, and I thought I would read from the story that's come out most recently. I know it's National Poetry Month, but because we just launched the anthology, I thought I'd read from Super Canucks and my story in it, which is Old Crow.
Whenever you're ready.
During my weekly pluckathon, I come across what I think is a very dark, very thick hair on my chin. I go in for the kill, and God, it hurts coming out. My eyes stream, and the torn follicle bleeds like it's a damn feather. I drop the tweezers and, putting pressure on the wound, wander the house in search of my phone. I have to make an appointment with my doctor. Daisy Dog whines at me, and I stop in the hall, gazing down at the quizzical expression on her yellow labby face. What am I thinking? This could be some anomaly. Besides, I wouldn't get to see Dr. Manet for at least 3 weeks in person. If I should call anyone, it's my best friend Tabby. She's a veterinarian, not a doctor, but what if I'm panicking over nothing? I return to the bathroom, clean and dress the wound, and pick up the tiny black feather with my tweezers. What do I do with it? I retrieve an empty pill bottle from the recycling bin and drop the feather in. Evidence. It makes me laugh. I'm a retired English professor, not a forensic scientist. What's this feather going to prove anyway? The next day, there are two feathers. I do not pluck. I briefly reconsider calling my doctor, but what's she going to do about feathers? They appear exponentially after that, form a fringe around my face, back to my hairline, down over my neck. No one can see me like this, not even Tabby. I'll be carted away for research or vivisection. Christ, what a thought. I only walk Daisy Dog in the dark. I wear a hoodie to obscure my face, keep my head down. My next grocery order is online and delivered to my house. I start ordering everything online. I'm one nosy neighbor away from exposure. I can't stay here, but I have no idea where to go. All I have is this house. How do I sell it or find another more remote location without interacting with a real estate agent? On the fifth day, my hairbrush comes away with a whole swath of long silver tresses, revealing the totality of my devastation. My scalp has been overtaken by black, shiny plumage. I come back to my senses sometime later, slouched on the bedroom floor, surrounded by clumps of silver white hair. I've torn it all out. My face is wet with snot and tears, and my throat aches like I've been screaming for hours. Daisy Dog is nowhere to be found. After I tidy, uh, a careful search reveals her under the bed against the wall, shaking. It takes an hour to reassure her that the dreadful noise has stopped and that I'm still her Hugh mom, kind of. I'm just changing Daisy Dog. Into what? I don't know. The next day, I can't see. I bumble around my home in a daze and pajamas, bumping into everything. My eyes hurt so bad I want to gouge them out of my skull, but I can't bring myself to act on the impulse. I kneel in front of the dog bowls to feed Daisy Dog, trust the scoop to measure out the right amount of food. But she's eating the kibble even before I get it in the bowl. The scoop goes tumbling and kibble with it. Tick-a-tack-tack. Daisy Dog snuffles after with a wet lap of tongue and a crunch, crunch, crunch. She whines, scrabbling. Did kibble roll under the fridge? The stove? I don't even fill her water dish, just sit down. Oh, there's the kibble under my right butt cheek, and dissolve into weep. Sorry, girl, I can't walk you like this. I offer her the butt kibble as compensation. And I think I will stop there.
Uh, so I was lucky enough to be at the book launch for Super Connects, and when I was listening to this story, my imposter syndrome flared because I was thinking I am never going to write anything that good. That was it blew my mind how
Aw,
beautiful it is, and then just reading the rest of it once I got home was it didn't disappoint, and I felt lucky to read it. That the allegory is not subtle, but it's beautiful because I kind of want I don't want to turn into an old woman now. I want to turn into a crow.
yeah.
So
Well, it is, again, sort of menopause, perimenopause, wonderful things like that. Um, and it also, I mean, it's very oblique, but also because in my case, perimenopause directly learned or leaned into to me being confirmed as autistic. So it was a kind of double transformation in midlife for me, and so it's very, you know, that's sort of where that kind of went.
you're learning to be a new self in a way.
Yeah.
Now, the first question I want to ask out of all the ways that you could artistically express yourself, why writing? What drew you to that?
Um, Actually, I've always been kind of a storyteller. Um, so before I could even write, I was telling tall tales, aka I was a fat old liar. And it was sort of in grade three. I was seven, and that's when my parents got our first dog, which I named Frisky, um, because at the time I had read a book, and the book had said that you name your dog after its qualities, and that was what she was. She was running around like a crazy thing. So my first piece of any kind of writing that I had done myself was sort of a report on my new dog. And at the time, I was reading comics, so a lot of the women heroes, Huntress, Wonder Woman, She Hulk, even Dazzler. I mean, I didn't go for the groups, so I wasn't into like X Men per se. But yeah, I just gravitated to the women heroes, and I was reading the Chronicles of Narnia. And so when the grade fives were assigned this project to create a storybook, um, there was one person who just she made this sort of forever impact on me. Her name was Siobhan Riddell, and she has sadly since passed away from cancer. But she drew all the pictures in her storybook, as well as it was a retelling of Saint George and the Dragon. But even then, someone in grade five, she was such a fabulous artist. It just made me want to. Um, that was sort of the impetus that said, okay, instead of just reading this stuff, why don't I try writing it? And so I've been writing ever since.
One thing I want to glom onto that you said was uh, focusing on the female superheroes, because I did that too, and I don't. When you think of it now and you see an article or a video on it, it was almost subversive to seek out the female superhero, seek out the female writer, because you know early 80s, even into the 90s, it was a silenced voice. But it just goes to show how important representation is, because I'm going to project onto you for a moment, but it was not something we didn't do it to be so or to be different. We did it because we wanted to see ourselves, and or we wanted to see what we could be, which was those, kicking ass. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word on here, but
I think if we don't get any more spicy, we'll be fine.
but yes, and well, now that you have found out that you're autistic, do you see try to project that representation, or do you find that you've been trying to seek out that representation in other writers?
Um, because of the time in my life that I discovered or had confirmed the fact that I was autistic, um, it's mostly been a sort of reviewing and sort of re envisioning of my own life, because I can look back and I can see all of the signs were there all along. I mean, I've always been autistic. It's just um, for the way that, as you know, uh, assigned female at birth persons, were encouraged to be kind, to not make a fuss, to smooth over any conflicts, to do all that kind of stuff. And, one of the things that has always been true about me is that I'm a really fast learner. So I learned very quickly what was acceptable and what was not. And, I've been masking for most of my life. So I mean that's kind of another metaphor for taking off the mask. Um, but it's yeah. So it's more like being looking back and saying like I've always been autistic and finding sort of the evidence of that in past experience.
How would you encourage someone else to get started in writing? I know the most obvious way would be just tell them, just put pen to paper, and sometimes that is the hardest part. But what else would you do to encourage them?
Um, well, first, it's important that it is something that you're really passionate about. Um, if it's just something that um, you think might be interesting, Sure, you can try it out, but it may not be something that, because you do have to have that impetus, that desire to express yourself. But if you do, then I would say, try try something private first, because it takes the pressure off that, nobody ever has to see this. So I would recommend things like journaling. Get your thoughts out on paper, that kind of thing. Dream journals, if you have an active dream life, then that's really cool too. I have kept journals for years and still do. um, so I write down ideas in there. I explore them, that kind of thing. And a lot of what I write, whether it's poetry or fiction, there's usually a what I call percolation time, where the idea occurs to me and then it has to sort of stay in my head and rumble around in there for a while before I actually commit it to paper. Um, excuse me. Sorry about that. Um, so yeah, that's a great place to start, is just expressing for yourself. And then, once you have sort of that kind of record, you can look through it and you can say, okay, is there something that I would like to pursue, whether it's poetry, prose, nonfiction, um, whatever form that takes. Do a test drive. You know, if you are interested in writing as something that you submit to the outside world, then it is a good idea to um, become aware of the opportunities that exist. You can do a lot of Google searching and find a lot of opportunities, journals that are accepting submissions, that kind of thing. Um, so set yourself a little challenge. Identify some place that you think would fit with what you want to write. And that's an important thing too. You can't just sort of like submit something blindly to every journal you can get your hands on, because most of them are not going to be interested in what you write unless that's what they publish. So you kind of have to make a match there. But set yourself a challenge. So you find, say you're looking at poetry and you'd like to get into, one of the big ones like Arc or something like that, or Rattle. Um, Visit their website, look at their submission guidelines, and particularly Rattle has a lot of opportunities. They have a weekly challenge called Poets Respond, where it's based on what's happening in the world. Which, if you're going to write a poem, then that may be one of your inspirations, is to sort of respond to what the heck is happening in the news this week. And you can just start submitting. Expect rejection. It's going to happen. You don't get published out of the gate. And a lot of writers accumulate hundreds of rejections. It's just something that, while it hurts, and it still hurts to this day, every time someone doesn't accept something I submit, um, it's something that you have to accept that is going to happen. And it's going to happen a lot before you get, proficient enough at your craft to get those acceptances. In the meantime, you know, identify if there's any courses that you would like to take to improve your craft. Identify if there's any books. There's probably a lot of books in your local library that you could get and read if you wanted to deepen your craft, whether it's prose, poetry, nonfiction, whatever. So it's basically, you kind of follow your inner instinct, and you kind of um, follow your bliss and see where it takes you.
There was a lot of great advice in there, but the thing that got to me that I think is so fundamental we tend to forget is make sure you like writing first.
Yeah.
because they think, "Oh, I could write a novel," and it's such a almost a trope at this point that you would see in a movie where the main character never finished his novel, and it's not because like they make it because he was frustrated and he just couldn't get it done. But if you love writing, you'll end up finishing something,
Mhm.
even if it's a poem, even if it's a short fiction. You'll finish something because you love the craft. And
Mhm.
then once you've realized you love the craft, everything else, as you said, will just kind of build from there as you look into it.
Mhm. And practice. I mean, if you, again, if you love writing, you're going to write. Um, and it may not be every day because individually we all have life and challenges and other things that we have to juggle. But, write as consistently as you can, and practice does make improvement, not perfection. Don't strive for perfection because you're never going to get there. It is an impossible goal. Just aim for improvement. If you get better, then you can generally succeed.
Just be better than you were yesterday. That's all you have
Yes,
to worry about.
exactly.
So you did touch on it a little bit, but what is your process? Do you um, prefer to sit and write for a certain amount of hours per day per week, or like you said, you just wait till the idea percolates and then write it, or do you do a bit of a mix of both?
I do a little bit of everything. Um, right now, I'm still working um, full time, so it's hard to fit in writing in a regular workday. Um, so basically, I am sort of restricted in that sense that I have to wait until after work. And usually after work, I am also mentally exhausted. So it's very hard to get yourself to do stuff. Um, I do have a blog and um, Substack newsletter, so I I write, most days in that at least, and usually that will get sort of the juices flowing, as you might say, and I can turn to, whether it's poetry, a short story, the novel that I'm eternally working on. um, but again, it depends on your life, really. Um, so right now, my writing time is kind of like after work till supper, and then after supper until about 8:30 or 9 or so. And then, it's kind of, so it's just a few hours. It's a very narrow window, and then weekends. Um, and so, I may or may not get tons of stuff done. Um, and again, with the autism, um, I have to count my spoons. So I can't necessarily, because I did try in the past, basically work a full day and then, pretty much write all night. And I was pretty much exhausted. Like I burnt out pretty big time a few years ago. And I'm right now trying to construct a life that works with my autism rather than against it. Um, I have found a neurodivergent affirming therapist in town, and we're working together on that stuff. So this is good. Um, so that's another piece of advice is that if you have, um, you know, and it doesn't have to be a neurodivergence like autism, it could be a physical disability, it could be other mental health issues, it could be any number of things, learning disabilities. Reach out for help and get the help that you need to address the concerns that you have. Um, that is a way that you can sort of take a little, and the word that I'm trying to think of is just escaping me at the moment. It's something that you want all of your characters to have.
Compassion.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like, you want your protagonist has to protag, whatever. They have to drive the action, right? So you have to take matters into your own hands, um, and make sure that you have the health, the mental health, the sort of virtual time and space in which to do your thing, right? Um, so yeah, I'm I'm trying to build a life that where I can write a lot more and a lot happier and be a lot happier about it. Um, but another thing has kind of come up. So I'm facing it's called workforce adjustment, quote unquote,
Oh
but
no.
it's called layoff in everyday speak. Um, and so I'm in the middle of that process. And at my employer, it is a process. It's going to take months to sort out. So there's a lot of uncertainty that I'm dealing with right now, and so it's not good for the writing process because my brain is stuck in one mode, which is like, oh, you're going to be unemployed soon. But you do what you can, and you find the space and the time that you can, and you do what you can, and you celebrate every word on the page. You write a sentence, woohoo, I done the thing. I know it may sound a little condescending or something like that, but really, every word is a victory. Um, Particularly when you're dealing with, um, hard times. And in our current world environment, it's like that alone can make it hard to make the time because it's like hopelessness is a thing.
Well, my therapist, anytime I say something that I should have done this and should have done that, he says, "Would you tell that to a friend?" Like, of course not. And I hate it when he says that because then I have to take the word should out of the equation. Once you take should out of the equation, you're showing yourself a little more kindness. And I think that's what you're talking about is just show yourself a little kindness. You are everything that you're going to do as a writer, even if you're traditionally published, is going to be self-imposed. Your critiques of yourself, your deadlines, how much you want to put on the page is going to be a, a set that you make for yourself and no one else, and you're only disappointing yourself. So don't do that. Be kind, be more flexible. And yeah, 100% that. And I hate that that came with age and therapy, and that wasn't something I was born knowing, because that would have made my life so much easier.
Wouldn't it now? Yes. And I finally thought of the word that I was trying to think of before, agency.
Agency. Oh, that's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yes, you want to have agency in your own life. So rather than sort of, you know, if the state of the world distresses you, maybe cut back on the news, make that choice. Don't seek out, the crazy online. Stop doom scrolling. Um, because that's going to make those decisions to improve your well-being. Um, and then you will find that you do have a little more space to do the things that you want to do that bring you joy, and that's where you want to be.
And agency is the perfect word for that. But I will tell you, next time I'm having a hard time writing my main character, I'm going to say my protagonist isn't protagging right now.
Yeah.
I love that too much.
Yes, well, that is actually not my own thing. It's I think it's from Writing Excuses. It's another podcast um, done by a group of writers in the States. One of them is Mary Robinette Kowal. But yeah, that was one of the things that they used to sort of say your protagonist has to protag.
No, um, I've noticed in your writing, in your prose and your poetry, you do have darker elements, but there, no matter what you're writing, there is a sense of whimsy. Is that something you work to put into your writing, or is that your voice coming through?
I think it's my voice. Um, but I've always, when you're writing fiction, because it doesn't really apply to poetry so much, but when you're writing fiction, you have to put your characters through it, right? You have to be mean to them. You have to get, downright nasty sometimes, and that can involve um, darkness. Um, but there is no light without the dark. So you can't have that hopeful ending without putting your characters through it. So I really do like, though, the recent sort of um, trend for cozy mysteries, cozy fantasy, like
Hagun
oh
Homicide was the one I just read from Lisa Kovala.
oh
That was,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. But there's a lot of cozy going on out there where it's, yes, dark stuff happens, but you tend to keep the overall story tone light, and focusing on positive things, um, because it's a hard world out there, and so sometimes, yes, you need to have some escapism in your fiction. Um, but yeah, so there, like I say, there is no light without the darkness, and vice versa. So
Do you find it difficult to switch gears from prose to poetry, to switch that mindset?
um,
Because in my mind, poetry is so personal. In a way, you're the protagonist that's getting put through it to make the poetry.
yeah, yeah. Well, it is a very different mindset, or yeah, head frame, whatever you want to call it. But it depends on the idea, because sometimes when you have an idea for a poem, it is very different than an idea for a story. Um, Usually, it's just a moment, something you see, something in the environment, an animal or bird or the sky, something, the moon. I like to write it with the moon a lot. I'm a self-confessed lunatic, but yeah. So poetry is just a very different mindset, to get into. Um, but I do find that I can only, like, I can shift tasks, so I can write for a certain period of time on one project and then shift and write on a different one. But usually, if it's something bigger, I only have so many spoons. And if I have to devote them to, if there's a short story deadline that I want to hit, so that's coming up, then I have to put all my spoons in the short fiction basket. Um, if I want to, submit to a poetry journal, or they have a contest and there's a deadline, again, I have to shift and devote my time to that. So I generally only work on one thing at a time. Multitasking is impossible. It is a myth. You can't do it, even if you think you are. You cannot. But I can shift focus, you know, between tasks.
And it's again that being kind to yourself. And I, because that was something I struggled with, was I should be able to do all the things. And now I'm just happy to do a thing and
Yes.
do it well. And again, I, I don't like that that came with age, but here we are.
Yes. Yeah. So the general thing is to stop shooting on yourself.
Oh my goodness, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and that's again something else I've heard from somebody else, but it is, stop shitting all over yourself. Come on, because that it is that's exactly what that word is it's just a punishment. So
That's the thing I love with speaking to other writers and listening to the podcast as well is you feel like you're alone, but and especially because writing is can be such a solitary event, but these things that you're going through and these doubts you're having, they're a shared experience.
hmm
Now, if you'll excuse the hard pivot, I do want to ask about marketing when you're with an indie publisher. So, The Art of Floating was through Latitude 46, and I've only had experience with self publishing, and there's a lot of hustle involved. With indie publishing, I am only my assumption is that it's almost the same. Like you had someone there for certain parts of it, but the marketing part is still basically the a big hustle for the author themselves.
yes, and this is almost as true with traditional publishing. So you know basically, yeah, if you want to get anything done as far as marketing and promotion, you really have to do it yourself. The publisher, if you have a small publisher, an indie publisher like Latitude, they will do, you know, what they can, again within there, because it's not like Penguin Random House. They don't have a huge budget. So, but when we did the launch, um, they put in for um, live casting the event. Um, and they were they put my name out to literary festivals and things like that. But one of the things that I learned that I didn't know is that when you have a debut poetry collection coming out, you're brand new basically. Doesn't matter how old you are, but you're brand new on quote unquote the scene, and nobody has reviewed your work, nobody has read your work, and so very few literary festivals are interested in taking you on. Very few reading series. I was very fortunate to get in with the Conspiracy of Three in North Bay, so I traveled to that. I, you know, Latitude organized a book signing a couple weeks after launch. So it was very much a sort of, I do some things, they do some things. Um, but after the first year, it's basically the only um, the the effort that your publisher is going to put forward for you, because they have other books coming out. They got to shift focus. It decreases significantly. So you have to sort of try and keep your work out there. They do have a relationship with Publicist, which is River Street Writing, and Halle is really good about getting your stuff out, particularly on Instagram. She does a lot of social media. Um, she seeks out, reviews, but again, reviews are very hard to place. If a publication doesn't know you, they're very reluctant to take a chance on you. Um, so it's again, it's a process. You have to sort of continue to get yourself out there and continue to put things together. Um, but yeah, so it's once you do get out there though, that's one of the things that gets a little easier is to, um, people start thinking of you when they put together an event, and or doing a podcast or a radio show in your case. And so I'm like, you sort of have to seize the bull by the horns. And when I saw your little expression of interest email go out, I figured I would give it a try, and I'm so pleased to be here.
I'm so happy too. And yes, yeah, it's you want, because one thing, I don't know if this is a millennial Gen X thing, or if this is you know being assigned female at birth thing, that we were taught to minimize our accomplishments, so that if I like, don't go out there and tell people about your book. You stay humble, and you, if they want you, they'll come to you, but don't bother them. That is a mentality that we need to break out of.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So it's an ongoing thing, but yeah, I'm pleased with the attention that the art of floating has received and continues to receive. I just actually saw on Facebook that a friend of mine from Windsor actually picked up my book and read it, and she just posted that she had done that, and I was like, oh, that's so nice. It still makes me feel like, oh, it warms my little writer's heart.
I don't get sick of it. I really don't.
Yeah.
Now, besides your books, what do you have, any book recommendations?
Oh goodness. So many. Of course, I'm going to promote the books of my friends. So Lisa, both her the writing she does under her own name, like Water for Weary Souls, which was an excellent historical mystery, and Hugin Homicide, which she publishes under the pen name A.L. Jensen. And there's going to be forthcoming books. So I really admire Lisa's just work ethic, I guess. Like, mind you, she's retired, so she doesn't have the work thing to like get in the way. She can actually do writing as a business, and you know,
And she'll
do
be the first to tell you retiring did spur her forward in this. So it
yeah,
made me feel a little bit better about taking my time.
yeah. But I also will recommend Kim Fodder. Um, she did The Donahue Girl, which is historical fiction. Um, that was what, fall of 2024? Yeah, the fall that I came out in the spring with my book. But she also does poetry collections with a bunch of different publishers. The most recent one with Turnstone Press. Um, and my brain is just blanking out. It's about the bees. Pollination Field. There we go. That's her latest poetry collection. Um, and I want to push that one because A, she's a great poet, but also because she's had some health issues that have prevented her from doing a lot of promotion herself while she's in recovery. And so I really want to sort of say, go read Kim. Go read Kim now. She's awesome. And she writes creative nonfiction. She does reviews. She's an editor. She does all the things. So you know, I will do what I can for her. But I read widely. Um, so I mean, beyond the people that I know and want to promote that way, um, my mind is probably blank at the moment. Even though I do read quite a bit.
I know it's a bit of an on the spot question, but I've noticed that people will go to either the book they've most recently read or the book that just stayed with them their entire lives. And
Hmm.
there's no in between so far.
Yeah, yeah. There is that, but I read a lot of fantasy and science fiction because that's mostly what I write when I write prose. Um, so that is like like I say, I just have a lot of people that I like that make me one person that I'm really enjoying right now is T. Kingfisher. She's an American author, um, and her actual name is Ursula Vernon, but she writes adult stuff as T. Kingfisher because it's sort of like it.
Oh, the
Yeah,
coyote one.
yeah. Well,
She
there, yeah, and there's um, romantic subplots, and so the stuff that she writes as Ursula Vernon is actually for kids, and she doesn't want to get the two mixed up because kids should not be reading about sexy times. um, but anyway, so I'm reading a series. I read the first book in it last year, but it's Paladin's Grace, and the one I'm currently reading or listening to, because I listen to a lot of audiobooks, is Paladin's Strength. Um, and they're about these paladins from um, the sort of created fantasy world, and their patron is the Saint of Steel, who unfortunately died, and sort of left them with the gift slash curse of being berserkers without having a divinity to control them when they're in battle. So keep them from harming people that they shouldn't be harming, because that was the saint's sort of role, is he direct their efforts and pull them out of their battle rage. But yeah, it's a good series. I'm enjoying it a lot. It has that a lot of that cozy sort of element, um, and it's funny because you know she has a fabulous sense of humor.
well, from your writing, I can see why you would appreciate that because you
Yeah.
do. I can see your humor. I love it.
Wow.
Well, Melanie, thank you so much for being here with me today. Where can the people find your books and your socials?
Yeah. Well, the art of floating again, probably latitude 46, of course. Get it in your local library. That would be awesome. Pick it up from your local indie bookstore, your favorite, if you have one in your community. Um, 'Cause here in Sudbury, we do not. But Chapter's been very good about keeping it in stock. So, yay. Um, Other than that, most of my anthologies and other publications are sort of disparate, as Super Connects is also from Latitude 46. But the one I was in before that was an Exile Editions um, anthology called, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to look at it, Through the Portal. And it's kind of a eco fiction kind of thing, sci-fi, if you want to call it that. So that's my next most recent short fiction publication. You see, I'm not terribly prolific, but you can look me up on my website, which is just Melanie Martilla. Make sure you have two T's in the last name and one L. Everybody wants to do it the other way. That's okay. So melaniemartilla.ca is my website. That's my WordPress. Um, I do have a Substack, and I'm on most of the social medias with my own name. So as long as you remember to spell it correctly, I'm easy to find.
Well, thank you again for being here. And to all of you, thank you for listening. You can listen at 8 p.m. on Thursday on CKLU, either on the radio or online. And you can catch the unedited version of this interview on my YouTube channel, Garbage Words with Garbage Lady. Thank you very much, and bye bye.